Faith and fellowship. This is exciting, guys. It's been a couple months since we have posted, and we have a revamped studio. We have some new things that we're doing. Here with me, I have co-hosts Pastor Kirk Scholl of Art City Church and Lyric Cannon.
It's Cannon.
It's Cannon.
It's not.
And we got a full house today. We are sharing microphones because we have two guests. So this is packed. It's packed in here.
So I want you to know something just right out of the bat.
All right.
And Lyric and I, because we're doing video. This is the big change, right? We're not just doing audio now. We're going to be on video. And Lyric and I had a bet.
Did we?
How many times do you think Joel's going to actually look in the camera?
I don't think
It's already been 3 times, and I'm going to win because I got 5. So
Well, here's what I'm struggling with is like
it's an invisible person.
I want to be able to look at. I was thinking about this. I want to be able to look at you guys because I'm talking to you guys. But we do have a camera feed. But every time I look at the camera, I'm looking away from the mic, so it gets like it doesn't pick it up directly. So, camera, I'm acknowledging you verbally. Love you guys. I'm now looking this way, and that was 4 times.
there you go.
That was 4
There you
times.
go. Can you
right
do it
there.
one more so I can win the bet? There, okay.
That one's for you.
Okay, you
That
owe me
one's for you.
lunch. Lyric owes me lunch.
The voices.
Some
Real
voices
fast,
in my head.
just so you guys know, a couple new things that we're doing now that we're starting up again. The big obvious one is if you're listening on a platform that allows for video, we now have a video feed up and going. And hopefully this will be improving. We've had people request over time that we do a video feed. Now that you've seen our ugly mugs, you're probably regretting it. But
Who requested this?
we've had a few people ask if we could do video.
Joel's mom.
Joel's mom.
Joel's
yeah.
mom. No, people in our church. And really, we're not keeping much of a different vision, but we are broadening our scope a little bit. And so we like to have guests on here. We like to talk with people. Faith and fellowship. The fellowship aspect is we're just having conversations and talking about faith. We will have people on here that disagree with us, and we'll hear from their perspectives, their faith, what they believe. We're not here to debate them. We're just here to hear them out. We'll have people in our congregation, like today, and we'll get into that in a second, who want to tell their stories, and we're excited for that. On top of that, we also are going to be talking about some topics relevant to today, whether that's things going on in the news or topics that are trending, and we'll be looking at it through the lens of the Bible, because that's a biblical worldview is how Christians should look at the world. And on top of that, we'll also be talking about hot topic type things in the Bible, things that Christians have debated for years, and triage things, if I can use that word, second and third tier triage things that are debated in the Bible, and that so Calvinism, for example, or election, which goes along with Calvinism, or the millennium. We'll be talking about things like this in future episodes, and we're excited to be doing that for you guys and with you guys. So thanks for coming along. We're excited to kind of get things started up again.
Yeah, and if you're listening and you haven't heard Lyric yet, it's because Joel and Lyric are having to share a mic, and so you're probably hearing Lyric like in a distance because he's not wearing. We only have 4 mics, and we wanted to make sure our guests today had 2. Because they're the stars here today.
I'm the man behind the curtain today.
Yeah, you are.
He's the wisdom spitter.
Yeah, you're just gonna want to make sure you talk a little closer in there when you want to say something. But
Just not at the same time.
But today we're gonna get right into our episode today, and we're excited to have Lee and Angela here today from our church. They've been part of Art City Church. Gosh, that's
over a year now.
That's an interesting story in and of itself, because they started coming last year.
Well, we met you at Art City Days.
Right.
And then we never saw you for about 4 months after that.
Yes. Yeah, because my family had a tragedy, and we were in Tennessee most of the summer dealing with that. And I remember, I actually forgot. I mean, this is bad on a pastor, right? I actually remember coming back. I came back for a week, and remember seeing you guys in the congregation that day, and like introducing for the first time. And you told me that you had met me at Art City Days, and I'll just be honest with you, I totally forgot all about that. I think I had trauma brain with everything that had been going on with our family, but but yeah, so that would put it over a year, I guess.
Do you want to explain briefly for our listeners what Art City Days is?
Yeah, Art City Days is it's a festival that goes on in Springville, which is the city where we minister and live. And we do a specific fundraiser for Community Action Food Pantry, and just are out in the community, and we sell homemade bread and also just pass out things, have conversations. And so there's a lot of people, thousands of people that go to that each year, and it's one of our biggest outreaches. So. And obviously it has bore some fruit, because we were able to introduce and meet people like Lee and Angela, who have been coming for some time now. So I just want to say welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, I know it's not always easy to tell your stories. For anybody and any platform, but to be able to do it on this, it's not like we have thousands of listeners and viewers, and
We've got my mom.
Yeah, but we do have people that listen, and I really think you guys have a unique story to tell. So, man, let's just get right into it. I would think probably maybe we could start off, and you guys could do this separately or together. We can just kind of play that by ear, but. Why don't we start with you, Lee, and maybe just give a little background on where you kind of grew up and kind of what kind of religion or faith background you had.
Yeah, I grew up in South Jordan, and I went to as a member of the FLDS church, ran by Rulon Jeffs at that time, and then taken on later by his son Warren Jeffs, who's now serving time in prison. I went to school at Alta Academy. Warren Jeffs was the principal and one of the teachers there. And that was the mouth of Cottonwood Canyon in Sandy. So I just went there for 4 years. And then in about 1998, then Warren and Rulon and most of the Jeffs and everybody, a lot of people moved down to Colorado City, Arizona, and Hilldale, Utah. And so I was homeschooled for a couple years during that time, and worked at a machine shop, and just, yeah. Then in 2001, when the Olympics were supposed to, or the Olympics happened in 2002, mm-hmm. and end of 2000 or early 2001, we were all told that the world was going to end when the Olympics were here. So we were told to gather everyone up, and move down to Colorado City.
Leave the whole Salt Lake Valley. Like, as a whole church community, everybody was moving south.
Yeah.
Really quickly, why was the Olympics going to end the world?
Well, because I guess it was a big collection of wicked people. And it was just great timing for God.
Great timing.
God
didn't like the bobsledding.
No, yeah, I'm not sure exactly.
So I think it's going to be. We need to just clarify a couple things that I think we in this room understand, but maybe some of our listeners don't. So when we say FLDS, we mean the Fundamental Latter-day Saints, which would be different than just the LDS Church, which is prominent here in the Valley.
Yes. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, then the FLDS Church, and it really, the big division or split from those two churches was in about the 1930s. Mm-hmm. But it started in the late 1800s. And the main LDS church started moving away from polygamy, and the fundamentalist church trying to do all things fundamental to the religion that was started by Joseph Smith when he lived polygamy. Mm-hmm. And so they thought that the LDS church was going astray, and so they wanted to continue to live these principles taught by Joseph Smith.
So you two, have not or were not part of the LDS church at any time. You were part of the FLDS church, and that was it.
Right.
Neither us nor
our
our
grandparents,
parents. Yeah.
but not us or our parents. We were all born and raised FLDS.
Now, were you before the Olympics came and everybody moved down to Colorado City? Were you also in Sandy area?
I was
up?
in Draper, so our growing up backgrounds are pretty similar.
Okay.
Like we went to the same school, kind of lived the same lifestyles, both had 2 moms. Yeah, pretty similar. It wasn't until later, growing up, hitting our 20s, that everything, teens, that stuff really started.
If you don't mind me asking, it's like interesting to me you say South Jordan, because usually when I think like FLDS, I think somewhere really rural, like Palmyra, or like somewhere where they can kind of just be alone. But they were like, I mean, was it city of South Jordan? Like,
Oh yeah.
so
City
they were
of
in
South-
the city still.
Yeah, city of South Jordan, and there was probably at least 1,000 people living up here up until 2000 and
Like
end of
living in condos
2001.
and apartments too, or
Yeah,
Properties.
just
Wow.
houses
So they all
and
had
properties.
nice big properties. My
Her
grand-
dad had 15 acres up in Draper. My dad had
Wow.
3 acres in South Jordan, and yeah, most of us grew up in that farm style life.
gotcha.
At the base of Cottonwood Canyon, Little Cottonwood Canyon, my grandfather owned a big piece of property there, which he was the leader at the time, Roland T. Jeffs. And he had a big school that I don't know how many people probably went to. It was big. And my grandmother and all her sons had properties all around there. It was that, they owned most of that land right there.
So before we maybe pick up the story there at Colorado City, when you talk about your grandfather being the leader, what is your connection with the Jeffs?
So I am a Jeffs. My dad is Roland T. Jeffs' son, but I don't know where he's. So my grandfather was married to a previous woman in the Mormon church. And when he left the LDS church, then him and his first previous wife split. She had 2 boys, I think. And so she stayed part of the church with her dad and her parents. He left and married 2 other ladies, LaRue, which was my grandma, and Ruth was a Jessup.
Okay, and
Yeah, a few other ladies, and kind of started just a whole new family. And he wasn't the leader at that time. He was just living fundamental laws. And my dad is one of his oldest children after that first wife.
Okay. Wow. So you guys go down to Colorado City at what age were you guys?
I was 13, I think. I'd have to do the math, but I think it was 13 or something like that.
Yeah,
13,
we
14.
moved down in the year 2000. Yeah, we moved a little earlier, and I was 10.
So internally right now, I know you're young, 13, 10. You're just absorbed in this. And what is your thinking? Are you thinking what you said? Were you believing and thinking, okay, the world's about to end
100%.
because the Olympics are coming? We're going away from this pagan stuff down to, can you share something like how you felt about that?
Well, we were kids, so we definitely were just doing what our parents said. And yeah, I remember we didn't have a doubt that, the world and sports and so many things like this were just the root of all evil considered. And so when we moved to Short Creek, then it kind of changed the whole community, changed the whole church.
Everything, the whole structure of the church, everything completely changed around that time. Her grandfather, Roland Jeffs, had a stroke in 1998.
Yeah, he was
And then
in
he had
his
another one.
late 80s or
Yeah.
Early 90s.
So after his around that time, then his son Warren, that's when he started really taking over. He was already had a pretty good stronghold because he was I think he was already a trustee on the UEP, United Effort Plan Trust, which owned all the land down there in Colorado City and Hilldale, and a bunch of land in Canada, a bunch of land everywhere. And he was the principal of the Alta Academy School, which had been in operation for over 20 years. And so he had a pretty good hold already. But after his father's stroke, then that's where he really took his hold. And so by the time we moved down in late 2001, then he really just started stopping. I mean, like, they used to do just big festivals, and everyone was about town and doing everything. It was a fairly
joyful, family oriented, really kind of quite a happy life.
It was a good community vibe, or as good as a cult vibe can be.
Right.
But it was. But after that, then all that stopped. There was anything fun became evil, like she said, sports and all this stuff.
With Warren, he took over in this.
He became the mouthpiece to my grandfather because my grandfather was ill and really shut down all his other brothers, like my dad, and really stepped in as the mouthpiece.
Yeah.
Is what he called himself.
Question for you. So, I mean, what I know about the FLDS is either what I see them out at Walmart or from like the Netflix show, like Escaping. I think it's called Escaping Polygamy. I remember from an episode, Warren Jeff comes into power in the show and he like bans guns. Is that something that happened?
Yeah. He banned a lot of things, and some of them were semi reasonable, I guess. I mean, based on for instance, he banned dogs, and usually this is a thing that a lot of people say he banned dogs and it's so bad, and it sucked because we couldn't bring our dog down when we moved down, but there was a story behind the banning of dogs. There was a incident down in Colorado City where a guy had a bunch of pit bulls, and one of these pit bulls killed this guy's little boy, and so they just said, okay, everybody, no more dogs at all unless you're using them for work. And so a couple people that raised sheep had some border collies, and that was about it. But yes, he banned guns. He banned any water related sports. Very, very, very evil. There's just anything.
Play became wicked.
If you
Play. Okay.
If you weren't working, you were being idle. And an idle mind is the devil's workshop. That's what we were always told. So,
one more question. When you talk about all this land they owned, what are they doing to make income? Like, how are they buying this land? How are they just...
Oh, they have the land. Most of the land got deeded to them in probably in the 1950s. And I mean, they probably got the deed later. I'm not sure exactly.
In Short Creek.
But in Short Creek. Yeah, and even some in Canada, and Dalmanola and some of the Blackmores owned Canada up there 70 years ago. But down in Short Creek, then there was the original founders back in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, somewhere around there. Then they had like at least 1,600 acres to start with. Mm. And it was just, and then they just started building houses and had small farms and
nobody owned their homes. Everyone just lived.
Just is a caretaker of a house they live in at that time.
Yeah.
And as a family got more wives or got too big for that house, then they would move them into another one, and it was just by the time. So my dad. So her grandfather died in 2002.
I believe so.
September of 2002, about this time of year, 2002. And that's when Warren really took over. January.
Warren's your uncle.
Warren's my uncle.
Yeah.
Did you call him uncle?
Oh, yes. Uncle Warren is what he was known for.
Okay.
Yeah. In January of 2003, then he really took, that's when he actually took absolute control. He kicked out her other grandfather, Dan Barlow, who was the mayor, and all of his brothers, all the Barlow men that had basically, essentially built this town.
Established Colorado City.
Yeah. He was her grandfather, Dan, he was the fire chief for a long time, and then he was the mayor at the time he got kicked out, and all his brothers got kicked out. And then later, a few weeks later, her dad got kicked out, and my dad got kicked out.
Are the men fighting this? Like, are they like, hey, who is this? Yeah.
To a degree, but how do you?
Right.
Let's take her grandfather, Dan. He has probably 10, 15 wives.
I think he had like 9.
Oh, okay. So 9 wives. And every one of them as much as they can, they know that Warren is the prophet.
Wow.
And each of them have anywhere from, probably an average of
11 to
12 children. So he's got almost 100 children and 9 wives that are going to go with Warren Jeffs. What does he do at that point?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's...
And they give him the full support. They give my grandfather the whole support. And when Warren took over, it was a little... I don't know, how exactly did that transition happen?
Because it was controversial, right?
Yeah.
That he was going to be chosen.
Chosen, yes.
Yeah, it was.
Yes.
It was. There was a whole split off in Canada, and that's where my mom is from. She was born and raised in Canada, and part of the FLDS church up there, which was just it was still a part of this FLDS church.
Right.
It was just another branch. So the whole branch of the Canadian church just broke off because they knew
not our prophet.
Well, yeah, they knew Warren well enough, and the guy's name is Winston Blackmore. He was a fairly well respected leader up there, and he had a lot better control of his group up there because they were quite a bit more isolated from the main FLDS church, and so he was able to say, "Hey, look, I know this guy. He's not the prophet. He can't be the prophet. He's not a good person." And so they just completely split off with him.
Wow.
Good.
No, you go ahead, man.
I was just going to say, so you said both of your dads were shunned from or kicked out of the community?
Yes.
And they didn't take the family with them? You guys stayed?
Yeah, we stayed. I was 15 or 16. And then my mom, after a few months, my mom married a guy that already had 9 wives. She became his 10th wife. And he already had probably 80 or 90 biological children. So with her children and the other children of other families that got put in that family, he had about 110 children.
So could you talk a little bit about, because you said you had two moms?
I had 2 moms married to my dad. And my moms were actually full sisters.
Wow.
Okay, hold on a second. It's okay. So your dad had 2 wives.
Right.
Okay. How many wives did your dad have?
He had 2. His second wife, not my mom, his second wife is her dad's sister.
Is
And
Verlin T.
Warren's
Jeff's
sister.
daughter.
Okay, I'm going to have to have a diagram.
Yeah. So we're not related.
Right.
But she is related to my step siblings.
Right. Yeah. If you could just for a little bit, I'd like to see, or how do I say this? How did that feel? And I know you're growing up, you talked about being kids, and I know you're probably looking back on it now in retrospect. So however that comes out, but was that just something you just never questioned or doubted as a kid? You said, okay, we just have,
Yeah.
that question?
we didn't question, and Warren had been so much a part and the spokesman and so involved in being the leader before,
and especially
he
for us,
became the prophet. So when my grandfather died, he already had so much respect, so much influence with the people, that it was kind of a given. There was Uncle Fred that was in Short Creek, but he was pretty old at the time. He was probably almost as old as my grandfather. And he was the only other person that was even considered that may take over as the leader. Mm-hmm. But Warren had several of my grandfather's wives stand up in meeting and give like their testimonies of like seeing him
vision or something.
Of being the leader, becoming
the prophet,
and there was several like prominent people that give their testimonies to it, and so it really just became unquestionable.
But this is a guy that, like I said, was principal in the school we went to. So I went to 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade.
I'm sure my parents questioned, but as a kid, no.
Yeah, and he's the teacher. He's teaching us priesthood history. He's teaching us. We had a devotional every single morning for 4 years when I went to Alta Academy, and he's the one teaching this devotional every single day. And so it's a guy I've known since before I went to 1st grade. I mean, he's
but I think I misunderstood. So my question, because I understand the Warren Jeffs thing, and I think there's something there where that guy was evil, you know, and he's where he belongs. But I'm wanting to know, like, say, go back to when your grandfather was in charge or the prophet. When you were growing up and you had one dad, and I know this could go into a whole nother segment, but I want to understand a little more, and I think our listeners would want to understand a little more. What was the dynamic of having one dad but 2 moms? Was it just like, okay, we got an extended family here, my other mom was like an aunt, or how did that look like to you in that life?
For me, it was never. It was.
They were all family.
Yeah, it was 100%. All 100% family. They never lived in separate houses. They all lived in the same house as us. It was.
Is this like a duplex or just
one solid household?
Okay,
one great big house.
Okay.
And we were raised actually fairly, like, we were happy little kids. We always had someone there. We always had tons of kids, so we had lots of friends. And yeah, growing up, we were happy kids. The moms, I'm sure they had their differences, but towards us as kids, like, we respected both of them as equal. Just as moms. We did know who we were, like, what mom we were born from, but other than that, like, it didn't make a difference.
So it was more like we have an aunt that lives in the house with us, kind of a thing, but you knew it wasn't an aunt.
Right. They were, so my mom was Susanna, my mom was Mom Sue, and my other mom was Madeline, and she was Mom Mad. And Mom Mad and Mom Sue. Yeah.
Okay. And how many biological siblings did you have, or do you have?
So my mom had 15 children, and I am actually her youngest.
Okay.
And my other mom had 14 children.
Okay, so, and this is in between.
So 29 together, I think.
But were they all born while you're still in South?
All in Draper, yes.
All in Draper, and before you made the move to Colorado City.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we were at the tail end, and my dad never got any other wives, so yeah, we were all born and mostly raised up here.
Okay. Lee, same. What about you? So you had 2 moms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How many siblings do you have?
My mom had 14 children. So I have 13 siblings, 13 biological siblings. And then my other mom had, I think, 10. Yeah, somewhere around there.
And was it very similar where you called them mom?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, quite similar.
Go
ahead.
I was gonna say, did you guys ever encounter each other when you were teenagers, or like
No.
being in Short Creek together at
In
roughly
Short
the same
Creek,
time?
I didn't know of him, but I did I knew who he was and what he looked like, but I had never had
Never
a
even
conversation.
talked to each other.
I saw him in church.
Could you just briefly touch on, I'm curious what the, like in the community growing up, what, was there a lot of sheltering going on from the outside world to you as children being brought up?
Yes.
And what did that look like?
It's so when I was growing up, we had a TV. We could watch jazz games. That was about it.
That's not evil.
that was about it.
Not the Olympics, but the Jazz.
Yeah.
Well, and his dad had to keep that quiet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
But when we moved down, when we moved down to Colorado City, we threw away our TV. We didn't have a TV down there. I don't think very few people down there even owned a TV. And then later on, they told us no internet, no text messaging, no, you can only make direct phone
messenger
calls.
pigeon.
And yeah, pretty much.
There was a local store. We really didn't.
Yeah, there was the
go
local
out.
store owned by the FLDS, so somebody else would go out and buy out, and so you would shop at the FLDS owned store. You would, everything.
it's like communism.
Literally, or a cult.
Right.
Did every family homeschool? Were there schools for just the community? Did anyone send their kid to a school with kids not part of the FLDS?
Yes, there were homeschools, and there was a school that in Colorado City that was a public school, but Warren told everyone to pull their kids out in probably around that time. I don't
It was
even
before
know.
everybody from
it
Salt
was-
Lake moved down.
It was before I was there, so I don't know the time frame with that.
Gotcha.
so
But
there
yeah,
was a
there
few.
was no public school when we moved down, and then it all became private schools. So there was a Barlow School, a Jeff's School. So
Oh, you went to your family name school.
mostly, yes.
Okay.
Huh.
I went to the Jeff's School, but she went to the Barlow School.
Was there like school
Because my
rivalry?
mom was a
Or
Barlow.
not just-
Yeah, because her mom was a
Yeah.
Barlow,
Well,
and it was just how it ended up. It wasn't any. A lot of people went to other schools. It was just, yeah.
Quick question for you before we get too far away from it. Do the Kingstons, are they part of your group too?
They're a split off of the FLDS
Okay.
from, I don't even know.
So they weren't
when.
like immediately related with you at all?
Some of them are related,
Yeah.
but they're a split off from like the 70s or 80s.
Okay. So there's not like a Kingston school, you're not...
Not that,
Oh, gotcha.
I mean, there is, but not that
Yeah.
we knew of or that we were associated with at all.
Gotcha.
Well, this has all been super interesting. I really think we need to. Could you guys come back and do another podcast with us? Because we're at a breaking point, and I feel like we're just getting started, and we need to pick up where your dads were kind of thrown out, and then transition for like what happened and from there, and how you kind of start.
Right.
However you
That
want to
was
say
a
it.
whole nother chapter
Yeah.
of the way we even lived.
Right. Yeah. I think we ought to do that. What do you think?
I think that sounds good. I also think there's no getting away from the secret now that we have a video feed and people can see what we're wearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't come back. We for our listeners who are curious, usually when we have a 2 or 3 part series, we record it all at once and split it into multiple episodes for you guys.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Or we just wear the same. We plan our outfits every week, so we wear the same clothes just the next week.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
I wear the same
Kirk doesn't
shirt.
wash it.
I don't know
He
what I'm
just-
talking about. I'm sorry.
I mean, I can get 4 wears out of this. So you wear it regular, then inside out,
then
and
front,
turn it around
yeah.
backwards.
The undies too?
Well, thank you for listening, and we're just getting started. So hopefully on the next episode, we'll be able to get into this a little bit more. If you'd like to reach out to us, if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, or if you have questions, our contact information is in the description. You're also feel free to comment on Spotify or YouTube or wherever you're listening, and we'll get back with you as soon as we can. But Faith and Fellowship is a production of Art City Church, and we're located in Springville, and we're looking forward to putting out more episodes now that we're back. Thank you for listening.
We'll see you next time.